In a remote corner of Kenya, where the Masai Mara Reserve stretches out, lived a young woman named Sophia Kamau. She was nicknamed Heart of the Savannah for her extraordinary ability to connect with wildlife. Sophia was a ranger whose life revolved around the endless expanses of the savannah, where golden grass swayed in the wind and the horizon dissolved into the haze of the setting sun. She lived alone in a modest mahogany house built on the edge of the reserve, surrounded by acacia trees and thickets of shrubs. Her house was small but cozy, wooden walls covered with varnish, a small veranda where she liked to drink herbal tea, and a garden where mangoes and flowers grew, attracting bees. The work of a ranger was not easy. Sophia got up before dawn, patrolled the trails, watched over herds of zebras and antelopes, protected animals from poachers, and recorded her observations in a worn leather notebook. But this work filled her life with meaning. She didn't just protect nature, she felt like she was part of it. Sophia rescued orphaned animals, nursed wounded birds back to health, and even taught young cheetahs how to hunt. For her, every creature in the savannah was family. One cool morning, when the first rays of the sun were just beginning to break through the morning fog, Sophia woke up early. As usual, she lit the kerosene lamp in her small kitchen and put the kettle on the stove. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the house, and cicadas sang outside the window. Sophia sliced some bread, took honey out of a jar, and was about to have breakfast, when suddenly the silence was broken by a strange sound, a quiet, plaintive meow coming from the porch. The sound was faint, almost like a kitten's cry, but there was a sense of alarm in it. Sophia froze, her heart pounding. She slowly approached the door, holding a wooden spoon in her hands, and cautiously peered outside. On the porch, illuminated by the soft morning light, stood a leopardess. Her golden fur glistened, and her eyes, full of anxiety, looked straight at Sophia. In her teeth, she held a tiny cub, a lifeless body covered with spotted fur. The leopard was breathing heavily, her sides heaving, and her gaze was so piercing that Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. Slowly, as if afraid of scaring it away, the leopard lowered the cub onto the wooden floor of the veranda and took a few steps back. Her eyes never left Sophia, begging for help. Sophia realized that this was not just a visit, it was a plea for salvation. Without hesitation, Sophia knelt down next to the cub. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself to remain calm. She gently touched the baby, checking its heartbeat. It was weak, but still beat. The cub's breathing was barely noticeable, and there was a deep wound on its hind paw, from which blood was oozing. Sophia looked up at the mother leopard, who was standing a few meters away, not taking her eyes off the woman and her child. There was no threat in her posture, only anticipation and hope. Sophia gently picked up the cub, held it to her chest, and headed for the house. She spoke quietly to the leopard, as if it could understand her. "I'll do everything I can. The leopard did not move, but slowly followed Sophia and stopped at the threshold, watching intently. Her presence was both frightening and touching. She had entrusted her baby to a human. Inside the house, Sophia laid the cub on the kitchen table, placing a clean towel underneath it. She took the first aid kit from the top shelf, where she kept medical supplies for emergencies. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the heavy breathing of the leopard outside the window. Sophia glanced at the porch. Her mother was standing there, her eyes burning with anxiety, but she did not take a step forward. Sophia treated the wound on the cub's paw with antiseptic, trying to act quickly but carefully. She noticed that the wound was deep, possibly from the claws of a hyena or other predator. Taking out a syringe, Sophia injected the cub with a small dose of a stimulant she used to save animals. Her hands were steady despite her excitement. She knew that any mistake could cost the baby its life. Then she took a warm, damp cloth and gently wiped the dried dirt from the cub's spotted fur. His breathing became a little more even, but he still did not regain consciousness. Sophia placed the warm cloth on the baby's forehead to stabilize its temperature and continued to monitor its condition. She whispered, "Hang in there, little one, your mom is waiting for you." Meanwhile, the leopard entered the house, stepping silently on the wooden floor, and stopped a few steps away from the table. She did not growl or show aggression. She just watched, her eyes full of trust. Sophia mixed a little nutritional formula with water and used a soft pipette to pour a few drops into the cub's mouth. About 40 minutes passed, filled with tension and silence. Finally, the cub let out a faint sigh, its ears twitching slightly. Sophia smiled, feeling the tension ease. She took the bottle of diluted milk and began to feed the baby drop by drop until it began to swallow on its own. The leopardess came closer, her nose touching the cub, and she gently licked its head. Sophia felt her heart ache at the sight. She carefully stroked the baby, its eyes slowly opening, and it let out a weak meow. The mother leopard immediately pressed herself against him, her rough tongue gently running over his face. The cub responded by pressing himself against his mother, and Sophia realized that the crisis was over. She opened the back door of the house leading to the garden, and carried the cub to a soft blanket she had spread on the grass under a spreading acacia tree. The morning sun gently illuminated the garden, and a light breeze rustled the leaves. The leopard lay down next to her baby, allowing him to rest in her warm embrace. Sophia brought a bowl of milk for the cub, and some meat for the mother. They ate slowly, as if enjoying the moment of peace. Sophia spent the whole day with the leopards in the garden. The cub gradually became more active, trying to play, clinging to her hand with its tiny claws. Sophia laughed as she watched him clumsily jump around on the grass. The leopardess walked around the garden, checking the territory, and then lay down in the shade, watching her child. Sophia took a few pictures with her old camera, not for publication, but for herself to keep this moment in her heart. Towards evening, the leopardess got up, looked at Sophia with a long gaze, as if saying goodbye, and slowly headed for the edge of the garden. The cub, now stronger, ran after her, turning back one last time to look at Sophia. She did not try to stop them. With a smile, she watched their silhouettes dissolve into the golden light of the sunset, among the tall grass of the savannah. She knew that their place was in the wild, and that loving them meant giving them freedom. Returning home, Sophia cleared the table, feeling lighthearted. She wrote down the story in her notebook, adding a small drawing of a leopard and her cub. It wasn't just another day at work. It was a day when nature and man became one. 2 weeks later, Sophia was patrolling the reserve in her old Jeep. The morning sun reflected off the dew on the grass, and the air was filled with bird song. She stopped by the river to watch a herd of elephants slowly wandering to the watering hole. Suddenly, a familiar figure emerged from the reeds, the leopard, the one with the bright golden spots. Behind her, walking confidently, was her cub, now noticeably grown. Sophia turned off the engine and got out of the car. The leopards stopped a few meters away from her, their eyes shining in the morning light. The cub ran up to Sophia, nudged her hand with its head, and let out a soft purr. Sophia laughed and stroked its head. The female leopard approached, her movements calm, without a trace of fear. She gently touched Sophia's hand with her nose, as if thanking her. "Thank you for coming back to me," Sophia whispered, feeling her eyes fill with tears. The cub lay down at her feet, resting its head in her palm like a domestic cat. A light breeze swept across the savannah, rustling the grass, and at that moment it seemed as if nature itself was smiling at them. They spent only a few minutes together, but those moments were filled with warmth and mutual understanding. The leopardess rose, looked at Sophia one last time, and slowly made her way toward the river, her cub following behind her. Sophia watched them until their silhouettes disappeared among the bushes. She returned to the Jeep, her heart overflowing with joy and gratitude for this connection that nature had given her. Every morning after that, Sophia went out onto the veranda with a cup of coffee, hoping to see her friends at the edge of the savannah. Sometimes she thought she saw familiar spots among the grass, but they never returned. However, Sophia was not sad. She knew that their trust was the most precious gift she could receive. This story became one of many in her notebook, but it was the most special. A story about how humans and wildlife can become family. Thank you for reading this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to share it and support our work so that we can tell even more stories about animal rescue.